still thinking about intuition. Now it's Sunday morning. It's absolutely gorgeous here today actually. I don't know if you can see the colour of the sky behind me, but it's this fantastic blue. It's really cold but gorgeous. Anyway, yeah, I'm still thinking about intuition, but I'm thinking about it in terms of variables. Because it seems to me that intuition kicks in best, really, when you're dealing with problems that have a lot of variables that can't be independently controlled. I guess I'm reminded of this experiment I read about. I can't remember the name of the author. I'll see if I can. Begins with a D. Deacon House. I'll find it when I get home anyway. But he did a series of experiments just asking participants to try to make choices. I think they were trying to choose an ideal car or something like that. And when the number of variables was small, just 2 or 3, then they could make, wise, rational decisions. But when the number of variables increased, their decision-making capacity just disappeared, really, or the wisdom of that capacity, or at least the immediate wisdom of it. If they slept on it, or they used processes which you might call intuitive, just using gut feeling, then they could make wise choices. But they couldn't make wise choices using overt, explicit, fully conscious, rational processes. So there's something there to do with variables, I think. And I guess I'm partly thinking is that this whole idea of being able to control variables, which is what science and a lot of rational thinking is about, it must be a really recent invention. Because the world doesn't come like that, does it? The world I'm surrounded by here in Cornwall, the natural world, is just full of uncontrolled variables, all operating independently, well, not independently, but all operating in really complex ways that are connected to one another, and you can't isolate in a natural environment, you can't isolate them out. It's only when you get, I guess, that kind of 16th, 17th century empirical science coming into the field, really, that you start to be able to, that the idea of being able to control for variables becomes possible, really. That's essentially what a lot of science is about, isn't it? That's what a scientific test is, an experiment is. You control all your variables apart from one, then you control that variable in an organised way and see what the result is. So, but as I say, that's a really recent invention. Prior to that, and for most of our lives now, we don't operate in laboratories, we operate in these environments where everything is changing all at once. It's like the 3-body problem, but with 3 million bodies, and the maths is just impossible. You can't do it, the rational conscious maths. Something else has to happen. So it can't be that kind of linear, rational, conscious process to make sense of it. It has to be non-linear or massively parallel, which I guess is what the brain is, isn't it? It's a massively parallel processing unit. It has to be parallel. It has to be non-rational. I'm not quite sure what the opposite of rational is. It's non-rational, irrational. Just put the negative in there. But whatever the other process is, something like embodied or somatic, I guess I would go for. That's with those kind of processes which you would use to deal with these kind of variables. And I guess historically, again, evolutionarily, historically, the results of that processing, the results of the calculation of all those variables, if calculation even is the right word, wouldn't be the emergence of a fully kind of linguistically expressed result in the way that rational calculations tend to. It would come out as a feeling, wouldn't it, in a series of actions, because that's what, as an animal without language and without consciousness, which is what our ancestors for sure were, then what you would need is, if you're dealing with a situation with a lot of variables and there's a lot of problems to solve involving all those variables, and the purpose of all those problems is and the problem you're trying to solve is one of survival, isn't it? So and survival is contingent upon not just being able to solve those problems, but be able to react and act wisely in the light of them. So I think that's what's going on there, really. We're walking through these complex environments, doing complex kind of calculation, irrational, massively parallel calculation, with the results of those things not being experienced as propositions, conclusions, conscious statements, but as felt prompts for action in the environment. Yeah, intuition and variables or something like that.